And the third one would be to stay agile and aware of the changing environment, of the business environment, both the macro and microeconomic situation. One eye on that is always necessary and important because that's how the leader and the team learns about what's happening around them and can quickly adapt. So these, in my book, would be the three aspects that a leader should try and implement if they want their teams to be learning continuously.
All right. So, hello everyone. I'm Ashutosh, co-founder at Paddleboard, and I welcome you all to Paddleboard podcast. So, this is the start of something amazing. For the longest time, we have heard from various folks in the industry that India as a market is amazing, but at the same time, we often lack focus on developing and upskilling folks in our team and help them in their journeys. So, we also believe that people are the moat of the business, and they often bring an unfair competitive advantage with them. So how can companies and leaders, harness the people and the skills better? This is an overarching question, and the theme of questions will try to answer with this podcast by bringing in some various industry experts and share their insights on different subjects, and which can help the business owners and leaders grow in their journey and also help them grow their teams. So for the first episode today, we are thrilled to have Ranga, Senior Director Growth at Agora, joining us. And Ranga brings in a wealth of experience in driving company growth strategies, sales performance, and importance of upskilling in today's business landscape. His insights and expertise will provide valuable perspective on the link between company growth, people growth, and also upskilling for the sales growth. And by the way, that's just professional introduction for Ranga. Many folks who are close to him in the ecosystem would also know that he has a passion for long distance running and pursuing endurance sports, something that resonates very deeply with me and inspires me to the core. Glad to have you here, Ranga. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh. Pleasure. Slightly nervous as well, but let's see how this goes.
No worries, no worries. We'll keep it candid, and I hope it goes well for you as well. So, starting with some introductions, right? I know that Agora has been powering real time engagement and is the backbone of a lot of industries. So, I'm aware of it being a SaaS business, but it'll help our you listeners if you could shed some light on what Agora does and also talk a little bit more about yourself and your role as a senior director of growth at Agora.
Sure. So I can do this two ways. I'll choose the simpler way, which is to start by sharing two examples, and then hopefully that will give some perspective on what Agora is all about.
Yeah.
So think of content being high-end automobile. Now that requires a very smooth and nice road for it to travel from point A to point B. Without a smooth, good road or infrastructure, the car is not really going to move anywhere. So that's one example. The other example is, let's say you're building a house. While the building blocks are the same, no two homes are essentially the same. You could build whatever and however you want on top of the foundation and the building blocks that you use. So combining these two is where Agora comes in, where we give our users and app developers and product managers a platform and building blocks to uh, kind of use their content in an interactive way across millions of people. Could be live audio, video, could be single users, could be multi users, and could be any kind of use case across different industries, be it tech, be it gaming, be it social, be it telemedicine, and various other use cases, even workforce related use cases. So we provide the basic underlying infrastructure on top of which you can build whatever you want to build, however you want to build, whatever UI, UX you want to offer to your consumers. So that's, in a nutshell, the simplistic answer to what Agora does. You asked me about what my role is. My role is essentially in some ways limited to making sure that we meet our revenue targets in India. And that is the single most important KPI that my team and I are measured against. This sounds a little daunting, but I think what we have done is we've kind of made it very simple for ourselves uh, by uh, by obsessing about customer success, by obsessing about
Right.
what our customers really require and what their pain points are, rather than force fitting what we think works or might work for them. And the other thing is that a little bit of going into a little bit of background about myself. I am not a salesperson by profession. So, which means that I don't come with any preconceived baggage or notions about how to sell. I think that helps me and the team a lot because we don't come with any baggage. We listen to what our customers want and require, and then suggest whatever works or might work for them. So that, in a nutshell, is Agora and a little bit of me. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about other aspects as well as we go along, but for
Yeah.
now, I'll pause here.
Yeah, that's indeed a very varied description, and in fact a good analogy to start with. So shifting gears here, I really want to delve deeper into Agora's growth story, right? So can you share Agora's overarching growth story and strategy, and how it aligns with the dynamic landscape of the industry?
Sure. While there are various things that we do strategically,
Right.
one of the key things that we have consciously done is to invest a lot of dollars into continuous research and development.
Hmm.
So that is one strategy that's very close to us, and we swear by continuous R&D because that is what we believe will offer our customers the choice that they have in terms of pricing, in terms of features, in terms of products, in terms of product parity, and their own competitiveness. So we are in some ways an extended R&D arm of our customers. So that's one
Right.
strategy. The other one that we do very consciously is also work very closely with our customers and ecosystem partners and also with our prospects
Right.
to discover and work on newer use cases. While two-dimensional audio video is good enough, but it may not really solve for some of the new age challenges that are coming up as we see as this whole ecosystem grows and evolves. So
Right.
we are passionate about working with customers when it comes to their use cases and co-developing these use cases. So I think
Right.
these are the two overarching strategies that have worked well for us, apart from the various other things that we do, but these two definitely stand out.
So definitely like a startup still, right?
Oh,
So
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So while Agora is a public listed company, but
right.
a lot of the teams internally work as a startup, and we believe that has been so far the key to our success.
Right, right. And because you mentioned, right, that a lot of teams work together, my next question is on the cross team collaboration. So it's very different, if the team is very small and you're a startup, but essentially when the
Mhm.
team becomes big and of your scale, how do cross teams function well, like a well-oiled machine? How do they produce results that take you from point A to point B in your growth story? Can you shed a little bit
Uh,
light on that?
Yes, I think sometimes organizations tend to overcomplicate
Hmm.
basic human communication and
Right.
needs, and
Hmm.
that's where I think it starts to break down. But luckily for us, we've kind of kept it very simple. Our regional teams are empowered to take decisions in the time zone and keeping in view the sensibilities of the requirements of the market. While we
Right.
do have central team that oversees a lot of these functions, but the regional teams have the ability and command and control to take decisions which are which are, I think, more close to the market that they operate in. That's one. The second one is uh, while this is a good model, but we still have to have at some points central command and control systems, and that's where technology comes in and helps us in collaboration. There are several tools that we use that help us in this kind of collaboration, and especially across time zones.
Right.
So again, we've kept it very simple. There are no rigid structures.
Mm-hmm.
There are no rigid hierarchies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of all loosely coupled. And like you also pointed out, almost like a startup, but
Almost.
probably a little more organized than a startup.
Yeah.
We have to be. But I think we have kept it deliberately. We have kept it very simple, lean and mean.
Right, right. And I think you kind of anyways answered my next question, which was about, the balance that you try to see between a specialized team, right? And how do you balance it with, the general business outlook and the business opportunities that the leaders are chasing. So so those are the exact question that I wanted to ask here, is that, let's say if there are team A, B, C, D working together, does
Mhm.
the holistic team that overlooks these teams, how does the communication and balance come in there?
Again, going back to a little bit of what I mentioned previously,
Right.
the local teams are empowered, like I mentioned, to take
Got it.
decisions that work for that region and for that market.
Got it.
And uh, I wouldn't really call it like a leadership team per
Mhm.
se, but a team of collaborators for a given project if they are
Mhm.
located in a different time zone and in a different geography.
Mhm.
Their inputs are definitely sought at the relevant time, and like I mentioned, using tools that
Right.
allow for this cross-team, cross-time zone collaboration. And again, I think it all stems to the fact that the central team trusts the decision-making capability of the regional
Right.
teams because
Right.
they are the closest
Mhm.
to the war zone, if I may say
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So while the general directive is in a certain direction,
Right.
but within that framework, the local teams are empowered to take
Mhm.
decisions.
Right.
So
Right.
it at least in my last few years at Agora, I haven't had a situation where either time zones or
Okay.
availability of a person has been a roadblock. That has never been the case in the last few years that I've been at Agora, even before we were public. And that culture and philosophy has kind of continued, thankfully.
Right. No, that's very interesting to hear. How you operate at that scale. And since you mentioned, a lot about essentially all we are trying to achieve here is some sort of goal, sort of a success. So, what are the parameters and KPIs? I know you mentioned the overall KPI for you and your team is to bring more and more revenue. But can you maybe break down that a little, and
Sure.
maybe explain top down how does KPIs at different levels, perhaps with your team or other teams work together in Agora?
Sure. So there is a set of KPIs that govern a lot of the teams within Agora.
Right.
Some of them could be very specific.
Hmm.
I may or may not be able to go into each one of them, but at a very high level, uh, as with any large successful business,
Yeah.
some of the metrics that we hold ourselves responsible to and for would be things like revenue growth, profitability, the market size, let's say customer acquisition rates. When I say customer acquisition, I'm not talking about B2C because we are a B2B business.
Hmm.
So our philosophy and our structure of customer acquisition is very different than that of a B2C
Right.
environment. Retention rates, innovation metrics, um, employee training, for example, is another metric that we have. Employee satisfaction is a
Hmm.
key metric, and from time to time, we make sure that we do take feedback from our employees as to what they see is working, not working, and how we can better things that are not working. Time to market is another key metric that we measure ourselves against.
Right.
And we also evaluate our effectiveness of partnerships and ecosystem partners. So these
Hmm.
are some of the different metrics that we use for measuring the success of a given strategy. In some cases,
Right.
there could be a few that apply more closely. In some, it may not be, but generally, these are some of the KPIs that we hold ourselves for.
Yeah,
or
I
hold
think that's
ourselves
a
against.
really, yeah, that's a really wholesome list there. A lot of metrics to track, and trying to
But let me also, sorry, let me also add here. I mean, I'm not saying
sure,
that everyone is held responsible for each of these metrics,
right,
but like I said, they are distributed. What I mentioned is largely
right,
that we kind of make sure that some of these are definitely followed by all the teams.
got it, got it. No, that's indeed that trickles down from the top, right? So
Yes.
that's great to see. And my next question is a little bit tricky in the sense, let's say in the past 2 years or with the recent times, there's been a lot of shift with just the macroeconomics of the world, right?
Hmm.
So the next question is regarding adapting to market changes. Can you share an example of a situation where Agora had to pivot its growth strategy in response to some unforeseen market dynamics or some externalities?
Um, I can't probably name a particular product or a service,
Right.
but, and again, it is not related to the macroeconomic situation that we have seen in the last few months or a year or so. But
Mhm.
this was more from a fact of how one product that we introduced into the market started cannibalizing one of our other products.
Oh,
So this was an unexpected outcome. We had not foreseen that, and therefore we had to scale back on the product that was cannibalizing on another product. But by and large, since inception of the organization, I don't think we have pivoted much, despite different situations and challenges, because our core offering has not changed. So we haven't really pivoted, but we have definitely maybe introduced a few products
Mhm.
and we've pulled it back, either because it not worked or in this example, it cannibalized on another product.
No,
So
that's
that's the closest that I can think of, but we haven't really pivoted from our core strategy.
Mhm. No, but that's very interesting. One product cannibalizing the other one. So
Yes,
but yeah, so and coming back, you mentioned about employee training and in general employee growth as being one of your KPIs, and at least that
yes.
is what you try to implement at various levels. So how
Mhm.
does Agora approach employee grooming? Are there any unique initiatives or programs in place that help you with this?
I don't think there's anything unique about what we do.
Hmm.
I don't know. I haven't experienced something very different in other organizations. So I'm assuming some of these are pretty straightforward and
Right.
standard practices. Um, Continuous learning, training, holding workshops, 360-degree feedback across the board. Then we have employee resource groups,
Hmm.
rewards and recognitions, wellness programs, uh, and I'm just trying to think. Yeah, but I think these are some of the things that we do. I don't know if there are any newer, better ways of doing it,
Right.
but this is what I've seen at Agora and seems to be working uh, for now. We don't know if we'll have to change something drastically in the future, but
Right.
my philosophy is why break something or why try to build something that's or fix something that's not broken.
That's true, but indeed, and still, you say that a lot of things are standard. But I from my experience of talking to folks, I think it's still very holistic what you're trying to achieve through employee grooming at Agora. So kudos to that. And lastly, my question is more towards leaders who are trying to lead organizations such as myself or other folks in the ecosystem. What advice would you give to folks of this generation or the future leaders on how to lead a team, how to cultivate a culture of continuous learning and growth in your organization?
Um, I think the first and foremost would be to lead by example.
Right.
So, if the leader expects their team to be learning something continuously,
Hmm.
the leader has to demonstrate that skill and
Yes.
capability. So, I think leading by example is, in my books, the first and foremost thing. The
Right.
second thing would be to maybe foster an environment where continuous learning is actually rewarded and fostered.
Hmm.
That's probably the other one. And the third one would be to stay agile and aware of the changing environment, of
Hmm.
the business environment, both the macro and microeconomic situation. One eye on that is always necessary and important because that's how the leader and the team learns about what's happening around them and can quickly adapt. So these, in my book, would be the three aspects that a leader should try and implement if they want their teams to be learning continuously.
Right. I think
And
that is
also, I think just from experience, I think sometimes we tend to look at frameworks that are out there for continuous learning and all. I'm sure there is a reason why those frameworks are there, but I
yes.
think one of the most important things, again, apart from the three that I mentioned, is common sense. So I think a commonsensical approach to leadership and continuous learning, I think that sometimes gets thrown out of the window. We just need to bring that back.
Yeah. To sum up, not overcomplicate things and just lead by example.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
That's a very nice way to sum this up, I guess. So and yeah, I think we're almost out of time. So
Hmm.
we're in the last segment of the podcast, and here I wanted to bring some other element, uh, and that's not like really related to the job, but essentially, what is it that that has been contributing towards your longevity in the ecosystem, and in terms of does sports actually have a role to play in how you do things at work, how you lead teams, how you show the teams the way to achieve growth and foster more continuous learning, or any other good practices that you might want to inspire other folks with.
Um, so I'll break this one into three parts. The
Right.
first one you asked about what might be a secret to longevity in
Yeah.
the industry. I think it's a combination of smart work and luck. I think those two go hand in hand. Uh, some people don't like the use of the word luck, but I believe there is an element of luck, and it
Mhm.
comes with either hard or smart or a combination of smart and hard work. So there's no denying that. Right time, right place um, sometimes helps. Coming to your question about has sports and endurance running played a part in it, I would definitely say yes. Simply because of two reasons. One is, yes, most people know me for the endurance running part of it. Now,
Mhm.
that is, to most people, it looks like a solo activity and solo sport. But in fact, there's a big team that supports any half decent amateur long distance runner like me.
Right.
So there is, first of all, there's support of undeniable support from the family. There is support from your coaches, there's support from your nutritionists, your physiotherapists, and whoever else that you work out with and you run with. So there's a whole team. Eventually, in a race, of course, you run alone, but there is this whole team that's behind it. So I think that whole concept of how to balance all these things, sometimes it's not easy to follow all the advice that you get from all the people around you when it comes
Right.
to running. So
Hmm.
you got to balance it, and that's very synonymous with what happens at the workplace. You have various stakeholders, various viewpoints,
Right.
uh,
Right.
various inputs. Now, how do you balance and still keep moving ahead? So that's from the endurance running point of view. But
Hmm.
apart from endurance running, I also play a lot of team sports, and I don't need to elaborate too much about team sports because I believe if someone is playing a team sport, it naturally extends itself into the workplace or into anything else that they're doing in their life,
Hmm.
even outside of work. So I think for sure, endurance sports and team sports have played a very critical part in my journey professionally. And again, each one's situation is different. We can't prescribe one medicine for all ailments, to each one their own. This is what's worked for me. It could be the arts, it could be music, it could be the fine arts for somebody else. So whatever works for whoever works, this has definitely worked for me.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that's also inspiring and very relatable to me as well in my own journey. Badminton, for example, has helped me a lot. Being
I
persistent
know,
and endure
I know
many
because
textures.
I've seen it firsthand, where you've come back from the brink of defeat to claim victory. So, I mean, congratulations and kudos for that. So,
Thanks.
yeah, I completely relate with what you're saying.
Thanks a lot, Ranga, for that praise. And all right, I think we have reached the end of the podcast. So thanks a lot, Ranga, for spending time with us here and helping our audience with your unique insights. I'm sure people had a lot to learn, but I particularly had a lot to take back. I've written some notes as well, so would be happy to discuss more in detail later. But for now, that's it in the podcast. Thank you so much, and we'll be back with more industry experts soon to uncover answers in the business world.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh.
Thank you, Ranga.